All right, y'all. So picking up where we left off, the standard millennial positions. In developing a systematic eschatology, we may sort out the standard evangelical viewpoints along millennial lines, though the actual question of the millennium in Revelation 20 may not be central to the discussion. In attaching prefixes to the term millennium, we modify the second coming of Christ in terms of its connection to the millennium. We have amillennial, premillennial, and postmillennial. The three basic positions may be briefly defined in terms of their chronology as follows. So first we have amillennialism. The privative in amillennialism emphasizes that there will be no earthly millennial kingdom as such. As amillennialist George Murray puts it, amillennial, a term which indicates a denial of any future millennium of 1,000 years duration. Let's see more on that. That's from his book, Millennial Studies. Premillennialism, the prefix pre, indicates that eschatological system that expects a literal earthly millennial kingdom, which Christ introduces by his second coming before it. This kingdom will transpire on earth under Christ's direct reign. Now, again, this is just the three basic millennial views. Then we have postmillennialism. The prefix post points out a lengthy, though not necessarily a literal 1,000-year long, earthly period in which Christ's kingdom influences the world, which period will conclude at Christ's second advent. Puritan era postmillennialism tended to expect a literal 1,000-year millennium introduced by the conversion of the Jews, rather than the return of Christ, as the last stage of Christ's earthly kingdom. Modern postmillennialism tends to see the 1,000 years as a symbolic figure covering the entirety of the Christian era. Now, I would be considered a modern postmillennialist. An important subclass of premillennialism arose in the 1830s. We know it as dispensationalism. Generally, dispensationalists often attempt to link the two different systems to beef up their historical argument. But we must understand that historic premillennialists strongly disavow any commonality with dispensationalism. Premillennialist George E. Ladd vigorously protests the equation of dispensationalism and historic premillennialism. He even calls any equating of the two a mistake. Now, this is why I also mentioned that these are in four views. It's three basic ones, but there are four different views here because between the premillennialists, right, there's the historic premillennialists and then the dispensational premillennialists. They are not the same. Now, me personally, I was a dispensationalist by default. Then I moved towards the leaning more towards historic premillennialism. So before I even knew there was a difference, but I moved from that into postmillennialism. In the same way that I went from theologically, I went from word of faith to reform. I did it through exegesis, real exegesis of the text. Anyways, this explains why the popular book edited by Robert G. Klaus is titled The Meaning of the Millenniums, Four Views. Anthony A. Hoekema notes that divergent interpretations of Revelation 20 have led to the formation of at least four major views about the nature of the millennium or the millennial reign here described. Many other evangelicals recognize four basic positions, including, for instance, amillennialist Grins and Riddlebarger, as well as premillennialist Grudem. Blomberg and Chung designed their recent important historic premillennial work for the express purpose of distinguishing premillennialism and dispensationalism. A case for historic premillennialism, an alternative to left behind eschatology, since 2009. So historic premillennialists do not like being grouped together with dispensational premillennialists. Dispensationalists, I'm talking about the scholars in the of the area, the representatives of the area, or of the eschatology. They try to lay claim to the historic premillennialists, but just so that they have that, you know what I'm saying? Just so that they can lay claim to some historical evidence. But it honestly does not go beyond the 1830s. In that work, we note the following strong distancing. The two systems are two very different kinds of movements. That's from page 2. Two versions of futurist premillennialism. That's from page 21, which involves fierce divisions. That's from page 4. They lament that Ladd paid a price for his premillennial views. For the next 3 decades, he told his Fuller students about the recriminations and condemnations sent his way by angry dispensationalists. It's from page 19. In fact, Conservative Baptist Theological Seminary also paid a price for allowing various premillennialist views, which produced intense outside opposition for decades. That's also page 19. They speak of the differences between dispensational and non dispensational premillennialism and the intense concern of their respective adherents that they not be confused. That's from page 95. So clearly, the difference between historic premillennialism and dispensational premillennialism is a fact. It's not an opinion. It is a fact, a very real fact. Classic dispensationalists are aware of their own distinctive differences as well. Ryrie even comments, this is Charles Ryrie now, okay? Perhaps the issue of premillennialism is determinative, and he has dispensationalism in mind. Again, the answer is negative, for there are those who are premillennial who definitely are not dispensational. The covenant premillennialist holds to the concept of the covenant of grace and the central soteriological purpose of God. He retains the idea of the millennial kingdom, though he finds little support for it in the Old Testament prophecies, since he generally assigns them to the church. And really, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, the dispensationalists would accuse that premillennialist of being would be anti Zion, or you feel me, replacement theology, for simply acknowledging that there is little support found in the Old Testament. The kingdom, in his view, is markedly different from that which is taught by dispensationalists, since it loses much of its Jewish character due to the slighting of the Old Testament promises concerning concerning the kingdom. Ryrie even argues the necessity of dispensationalism over premillennialism. What? Now, y'all got to admit that would be crazy. Why? Dispensationalism over against premillennialism, historic premillennialism? Anyways, Alice offers us a helpful eschatological sorting device, which Adams modifies. It works quite well in classifying the three basic millennial positions. Two questions tend to sort the positions into one of three most basic schools. These questions are: what is the chronology of the kingdom? And two, what is the nature of the kingdom? The chronology question focuses on the timing of Christ's second advent in relation to the kingdom's establishment. If his coming is before the kingdom, then the position is premillennial. If it is after the kingdom, then it may be either amillennial or postmillennial. Makes sense? Y'all following, right? The question regarding the nature of Christ's kingdom highlights its historical character. If the kingdom will have a radical, objective, transforming influence in human culture, it is either premillennial or postmillennial. If it will not, then it's amillennial. Furthermore, as Cornelis Venema notes regarding amillennialism and postmillennialism, whatever differences exist between the two views, they have in common an identical framework. In fact, both systems are they're postmillennial in that they hold that Christ returns after the millennium. This is facts. And the two systems are generally considered as simply two perspectives from the same position until somewhere around the 1920s. Consequently, they were both called postmillennialism. Venema notes that even in the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia of 29 to 30, No entry appears for amillennialism. The term is coined in the early 1900s. Anyways, in the next video, we're going to go deep into what amillennialism is.